Hello everyone. Welcome to the Lightning Ball channel. If you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, please do so and activate the notification bell. Your support fuels my continued efforts. In our previous episode, we delved into some background stories of Luminous and explained why Rimuru chose to support her over Milim. Just as Rimuru and Luminous devised their strategy, the situation took a drastic turn. With Milim's rampage, Feldway's second wave of action commenced, sparking conflicts worldwide. Unlike the Empire War, the Tenma Great War is characterized by battles occurring in various locations, showcasing the author's ability to depict grand-scale warfare. Now, let's get started. Rimurus's message undoubtedly was about Milim. According to Rimurus, communication with Milim's side was suddenly interrupted. They had just received the good news of their victory over Insect Lord Zelenus. But shortly after Gobta left, the surveillance feed of the battlefield was cut off. Gobta had to return immediately to find out what was happening. Meanwhile, Rimurus urgently contacted Rimuru, who immediately grew anxious. If there was anyone who could threaten Milim's safety, it had to be Frost Dragon Velzard. Rimuru promptly instructed Rimurus to warn Gobta, Ranga, and others to stay safe. He then turned to Luminous, acknowledging that although they estimated de Gruel's army would take about 4 days to arrive, it was hard to ensure the enemy didn't have means to expedite their movement. Luminous understood and wished Rimuru the best of luck. Returning to the Monster Federation, Rimuru headed straight to the commander room located in the Labyrinth's deepest level. There, he was confronted with an alarming scene on the large screen. The irrational Milim was wreaking havoc, while the smiling Velzard faced the destroyer Dragon Princess without fear, engaging in a seemingly evenly matched battle that resembled a clash of gods. As for the battlefield, the entire area had turned into a white space, devoid of any life signs, making it impossible to ascertain who was still alive. Ranga used wind manipulation to collect scent particles from the scene, only to find that all smells had vanished, indicating that everyone had turned into ice sculptures. Rimuru initially considered sending Gobta further to investigate these ice sculptures, but even with Ranga's protection, the two couldn't get close to the site. Any closer, and they too risked becoming ice sculptures. Rimuru and Carrera's soul corridor was clearly connected, but no matter what, Rimuru could not establish thought communication. Rimuru refused to believe that Carrera, Frey, and Carrion had lost their lives. However, the thought of Milim's rampage filled Rimuru with extreme unease. What to do now? Rimuru decided to change his approach. He ordered the assembly of all the Labyrinth Guardians and the swift recall of Gobta and Ranga, not allowing them to remain exposed to danger. Rimuru judged that the battle between Milim and Velzard could not be decided in a short time, and the only ones who could stop them were himself and Storm Dragon Veldora. Speaking of Veldora, when Velzard's image appeared on the screen, Veldora's behavior became very suspicious. He suddenly remembered some urgent business and tried to escape, proving completely unreliable. So who else could be relied upon? The last time Milim went berserk and fought Guy, it was Rimurus who ultimately resolved the crisis. However, it was clear that the current Rimurus had almost zero chance of replicating such a feat. Nevertheless, Rimuru tentatively asked Rimurus if she could restore Milim to normal if he managed to suppress Velzard. Rimurus yelled in response, questioning whether Rimuru intended to send her to her death. Rimuru had never anticipated that the enemy would resort to making Milim go berserk. Since they had reached this point, it meant Feldway no longer cared about the world's safety. From this perspective, a crazed Feldway might take even more horrifying actions, such as releasing the evil god Ivaraj. If Feldway wasn't stopped, even if Rimuru survived, everyone else would perish, making it all meaningless. While pondering this, Rimuru used thought communication to urgently contact Primordial Blue Rain, expressing his need for Guy's support. Rain immediately responded, stating that although Guy-sama seemed very reluctant, she would use her strong negotiation skills to persuade him. Yes, this was Rimurus Strategy. No matter how powerful he was, it was impossible to deal with both Milim and Velzard alone. He needed to find a way to involve Guy. However, When Rimuru tried to use thought communication to contact Guy, he was met with a harsh rejection. Guy was not like Veldora, who feared Velzard. He, like Rimuru, understood that even more serious events could follow. The future was uncertain. Rimuru had no guarantee of defeating Milim. If he lost, while he might not die, Guy also couldn't handle both Milim and Velzard, especially with Feldway and Evarage potentially appearing at any moment. In such a situation, no matter how he thought about it, he couldn't devise a more concrete plan and could only take things one step at a time. While Rimuru was still troubled, Rain reported that she had managed to convince Guy-sama. Just then, Guy's voice cut into the communication, questioning why his Rain was running errands for Rimuru. Awkwardly, Guy did not seem to focus on the issue of Milim and Velzard but was instead curious about the close relationship between Rimuru and Rain. In previous stories, we mentioned the secret dealings between Diablo and Rain. Rain had secretly created many portraits of Rimuru. Naturally, Rimuru had seen these portraits and discovered that Rain's work was astonishingly good, almost like photographs. Despite not having a live model, Rain could imagine and draw various expressions. Knowing this, Rimuru decided to hire Rain as his personal artist. After a deep discussion, Rimuru discovered that Rain could even draw nudes, which piqued his interest the most. With a desire to explore art and beauty, Rimuru asked Rain if she could draw nudes without a model. Rain replied that it would be very expensive. Note Rain's choice of words. It wasn't that she couldn't, but that it would be costly. Hearing this, Rimuru quietly slipped a bag of gold coins to Rain, who took it without batting an eye, muttering that it was ridiculous to bribe a demon with gold but that she respected Rimuru-sama too much to refuse. Seeing Rain's peculiar expression, Rimuru immediately understood and directly asked what else she wanted. At this point, Ciel's sarcastic remark echoed in Rimuru's mind, stating that Rimuru was shamelessly straightforward without any subtlety. However, Rimuru ignored Ciel's comment and decided to continue the conversation with Rain. Rain then expressed her desire for points, a separate payment system within the Monster Federation outside of the regular currency system. In a future video, we will specifically discuss the Monster Federation's currency system and Rimuru's annual income. For now, understand that points can be exchanged for special services, such as the right to purchase rare items first or the privilege of serving Rimuru-sama for an entire day. Afterward, Rimuru and Rain had a long discussion, resulting in Rimuru becoming Rain's sponsor, supporting her artistic endeavors. Of course, if Ciel had been willing to help Rimuru store images mentally, Rimuru might not have been so enthusiastic, but since Ciel refused to cooperate at crucial moments, Rimuru had to find a new path through drawing. At that moment, Rimuru thought he heard a dissatisfied murmur, but he dismissed it as fatigue-induced hallucination, reassuring himself that he had done nothing shameful. Ciel finally couldn't help but comment that she didn't understand Rimuru's obsession with nude-themed paintings. Rimuru deflected, saying that there couldn't possibly be something that even Ciel couldn't comprehend and that Ciel was just being too modest, swiftly changing the topic. This exchange had made Rimuru and Rain's relationship increasingly close, something Guy was, of course, oblivious to. Returning to Rimuru's conversation with Guy, Rimuru stressed the urgency of the situation and demanded Guy immediately head to the Monster Federation. With such conviction, Rimuru cut off the thought communication abruptly. Rain's artwork was still unfinished, and until that painting was completed, Rimuru couldn't allow the world to be destroyed. Rimuru vowed to overcome this crisis no matter what. In the conference room, everyone had gathered, although some were forced to rest, like Gabiru, Leon, and Chloe. Among those present were Kamara, Zijin, Apito, Benimaru, Diablo, and even Gabda, Ranga, and Geld, who had just been on the brink of death on the battlefield. Rimuru addressed them and stated his decision: he would handle the rampaging Milim himself. This statement instantly heightened the tension among the executives. It was the most irrational decision for the ruler of a nation to go to the front lines. Diablo was the first to speak, expressing his willingness to accompany Rimuru into battle. However, Rimuru immediately rejected Diablo's offer, stating that although Diablo was very strong, he wasn't a match for Milim. There would be more suitable opponents for Diablo to face in the future, where he could showcase his strength. Given that the opponents were Milim and Velzard, taking subordinates along would only increase the casualties. Ciel also confirmed that even Rimuru, Diablo, and Decision had a high likelihood of dying in such a battle. Rimuru's mission wasn't to kill Milim but to bring her back to her senses, a task of an entirely different magnitude. Thus, Rimuru turned to Guy and declared that Guy needed to accompany him. Guy glared at Rimuru, as he had mentioned earlier, feeling that the situation might escalate into something even more severe, and thus he was hesitant to act rashly. Rimuru noticed Guy's hesitation and pointed out that while the release of Evarage was indeed worrying, if everything was destroyed before that happened, it would be meaningless. Guy, looking bored, remarked that Rimuru had also noticed the issue. Rimuru continued, admitting that he didn't fully understand Velzard's intentions but sensed that making Milim rampage wasn't her ultimate goal. If they could better understand Velzard's purpose, they might find a way to resolve the situation. Guy muttered under his breath, suggesting that perhaps Velzard just wanted to see Guy's true feelings. From the start, Velzard's goal hadn't changed. She wanted a serious battle with Guy to prove her superiority. This was why Guy didn't want to face Velzard. Rimuru was surprised but saw that Guy's expression was unusually serious, indicating he wasn't joking. Rimuru felt exasperated, thinking that despite the world's potential destruction, this couple was still squabbling over such trivial matters. Rimuru asserted that despite this, the impending destruction of the world required intervention. Guy countered that Velzard's goal was to draw out both Rimuru and himself. If they didn't act, Feldway's plan would fail. According to Guy, the central world was created using Veldanava's superpower. While it could be polluted by Magicule, it wouldn't be shattered. Therefore, engaging now would play into Feldway's hands and could even lead to the emergence of evil god Evarage. The best course of action was to remain inactive. Rimuru didn't argue with Guy but lamented that inactivity wasn't an option. His companions Carrera, Frey, and Carrion had all been turned into ice statues. If he couldn't save them, his dream of a world where everyone could live and laugh together would be meaningless. Rimuru's determination was unwavering. Seeing Rimuru's serious expression, Guy reluctantly agreed to accompany Rimuru to face Milim and Velzard. However, Guy warned that their participation would exacerbate magicule pollution in the area, so they needed to control their power carefully. Rimuru retorted that Guy should have learned from his previous experience and wouldn't repeat the same mistakes. At that moment, Rimurus interjected, expressing her inability to help this time and her concern for Rimuru and Guy's well-being. Rimuru felt uneasy, realizing that this time they were truly improvising without a concrete plan. Even he couldn't guarantee what they could achieve. At that moment, Diablo's voice rang out again, still insisting on accompanying Rimuru-sama into battle. However, Rimuru rejected the offer once more. Rimuru explained that Feldway's true objective remained unclear. Luminous needed to defend against the Gruul, and he and Guy needed to deal with Milim and Velzard. This left only Diablo, Rimuru, and Decision who were capable of acting freely and accomplishing critical tasks. As long as the Labyrinth remained intact, it wouldn't count as a true defeat. Without entrusting the Labyrinth's defense to these three, Rimuru wouldn't be able to feel at ease. Rimuru firmly believed that with Rimuru as the overall commander, Decision as the protector, and Diablo's formidable response capabilities, they could handle even an attack from Insect Lord Zelenus. The three reluctantly agreed to Rimuru-sama's arrangements. Regarding Veldora, Rimuru stated that Veldora was the true final bastion. Upon hearing this, Veldora's previously dissatisfied expression vanished, and he nodded contentedly. Honestly, a great deal of luck was needed for Rimuru and Guy. Guy needed to suppress Velzard while Rimuru rescued Milim, all while minimizing damage to the planet and preparing for a prolonged battle. In the worst-case scenario, where Rimuru couldn't overcome Milim's rampage or Guy fell to Velzard, Rimuru would be at risk of dying. However, with Veldora as a backup, Rimuru could be revived, providing a significant safety net. Rimuru once again entrusted Veldora with this crucial role, and Veldora's firm nod conveyed a sense of reliability. Rimuru turned to the others, reiterated the important points, and then, amidst the anxious and expectant gazes of everyone, departed the labyrinth with Guy. After Rimuru left, a heavy atmosphere settled over the meeting room. Diablo quietly voiced the helplessness everyone felt. It was an overwhelming sense of powerlessness. Rimuru also admitted that he would rather abandon all tasks and focus solely on protecting Rimuru-sama, as Rimuru-sama's well-being was more important than anything else. Yet, because Rimuru-sama's words were true, no one dared to object. This time, Rimuru had set aside his usual nonchalant demeanor and appeared visibly tense. To prevent everyone from noticing, Rimuru had deliberately hidden his emotions, but Benimaru, who had long accompanied Rimuru, immediately detected the difference. Feldway, Ciel, Degruel, Zelenus. There were just too many powerful enemies to guard against. This was precisely why Rimuru had firmly insisted that Diablo guard the labyrinth. Zijin then spoke up, reminding everyone that there was no need to lament. They simply needed to flawlessly complete the tasks assigned to them by Rimuru-sama. Rimuru-sama's arrangements were always correct. Understanding the importance of the labyrinth, Zijin hid his unease and urged himself not to let external emotions affect his duties. Encouraged by Zijin's words, everyone regained their spirits and dedicated themselves to their tasks, restoring the labyrinth to its usual atmosphere. However, this atmosphere was soon disrupted by the sudden return of Sue. Sue reported that he had been investigating the motive behind Degruel's betrayal and had finally gathered some information and theories. Of course, we covered this intel in episode 92. It revealed that Degruel and his two brothers were once the 3-in-1 Mad King Ashura, the ancient giant god. After being defeated by Veldanava, Ashura split into 3 individuals. Fen was imprisoned, while Degruel reformed his ways and adopted a stable personality after meeting his queen Kizara. Rimurus confirmed that this theory was reliable, noting that Degruel was a naturally occurring force. Although not as powerful as she herself, he was stronger than the former Veldora. Veldora glared at Rimurus in dissatisfaction, prompting her to hastily add that the current Veldora was, of course, more powerful. While the credibility of Rimurus's statement was uncertain, it at least indicated that Degruel's true strength was on par with the true dragon's. This information quickly spread through the minds of all present. Bad news often comes in succession, and the next bearer of grim tidings was Molmile. He rushed into the meeting room, anxiously reporting that Sarian had already entered a state of conflict. Zelario and Ciel were leading their main forces in a fierce assault. Though Sylvia and Elmesia were holding the fort, the situation remained extremely dire. The screen quickly projected the state of Sarian, revealing the giant sacred tree that had existed since mythological times. Now, its trunk and branches sparkled with countless sparks. Although they seemed small, given the immense size of the sacred tree, it was evident that massive explosions were occurring. Benimaru fell into deep thought. Although Sylvia was powerful and could have an exciting fight against Benimaru, they were up against the crazed Ciel and the formidable Zelario. Sylvia and her daughter Elmesia would struggle to hold them off. However, if reinforcements were to be sent, they needed to be reliable and capable of at least delaying the enemy. The only ones fitting this criteria were Diablo, Benimaru, and Zijin. Benimaru decided he would personally go. Diablo asked if he needed assistance, but Benimaru declined. For some reason, he had an ominous feeling. To prevent worry among his comrades, he lied, saying he had trained hard and was now confident he could handle Ciel. Diablo understood Benimaru's intention and did not object. However, he reminded Benimaru to remain cautious, noting that Zelario was incredibly strong, a true warrior. Setting aside his magical quantity, his skills were top-notch. Despite feeling a bit shaken, Benimaru did not show it and firmly insisted on facing the challenge himself. Diablo remarked that Benimaru was imitating Rimuru-sama, questioning who would then serve as the supreme commander. Benimaru smiled wryly and assured he could still command from the battlefield. At this point, Veldora confidently declared that he seemed to be forgotten. Whether it was Ciel or Zelario, they were insignificant to him. Benimaru felt a bit more uncertain inside. With Rimuru-sama having defeated Michael, it seemed less likely that Feldway would continue targeting Veldora. As the overall commander, Rimuru knew he should leverage Veldora's immense strength. However, his intuition told him otherwise. He firmly stated that he would confront Ciel and Zelario himself. Rimuru's concern lay with de Gruel and his brothers. If de Gruel could contend with the former Veldora, and his brother Fan was equally strong or even stronger, then the combined strength of de Gruel's brothers was unknown. Additionally, the giant army might have other powerful figures unknown to them. Luminous, Xian, and Adelman might struggle to cope with them alone. Rimuru instinctively felt danger. Despite having no concrete evidence, he was certain Rubrios would be in peril, so he wanted Veldora to be the last line of defense. Veldora understood Rimuru's reasoning, leading Rimuru to decide to take Sue with him to Sarian. Just then, a new report came in. Milim and Velzard were moving rapidly towards the divine tree in Sarian. On the large screen, a red and white light intertwined, rushing towards Sarian at an astonishing speed. No one knew exactly what was happening, but it was clear that if they reached Sarian, the land would be reduced to ashes under Milim's destructive power. Diablo speculated that this might be Feldway's plan. Sue, shocked, asked if Feldway intended to destroy the world. Diablo responded that while it couldn't be confirmed, Feldway was a psycho, and it was a possibility. This might also be an opportunity for Feldway to summon Evarage. What Feldway would do next, whether to continue attacking other places or target the Labyrinth, was unknown. Rimuru stated that instead of worrying about the possibilities, they should quickly solve the immediate problems and prepared to head to the danger zone with Sue. At that moment, Leon suddenly appeared in the commander room, offering to help. Kigali also stepped forward, expressing her deep-seated grudge against Ciel. Tia, following Kigali, declared her determination to defeat Ciel and rescue Footman. Tia's resolute expression replaced her tears. With their resolve firm, the five left the labyrinth. Those remaining hoped fervently that no further emergencies would arise and that everyone would return safely. However, soon another message announced the worsening of the war. Adelman sent an urgent communication, reporting that he had already engaged in battle with the giant army. Rimuru's foreboding came true, and thus, the global war once again began in earnest. Alright, that's all for this video. Is Feldway a good leader? Despite Feldway's questionable personality and his team seeming disjointed, he still managed to put the demon lords in a highly disadvantageous position with the forces at his disposal. The Tenma Great War occurs once every 500 years, and considering the current situation, if it weren't for an anomaly like Rimuru, the demon lords wouldn't stand a chance of winning. In our next episode, we will begin to describe the battle between Luminous and de Gruel. In fact, this fight is the most brutal battle of the Tenma Great War up to the latest volume of the novel. Adelman and Gadra, old friends of 1,000 years, have significantly enhanced their abilities since joining Rimuru, and they will have the chance to showcase their strength. We will also see the brilliant performances of Xian, Ultima, Luminous, and others. However, facing the mighty de Gruel, these efforts might seem futile. The next episode will be equally exciting. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. Your support is greatly appreciated. See you in the next one.